Thanks for watching. Welcome to AuthenticDrummer.com. We're very privileged to have one of the world's greats with us today, and I'm very humbled because I'm a big fan. Mr. Antonio Sanchez, thank you very much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
And I've just been in your clinic and I've come out feeling very alive and awake. I was going to ask you about some of that funny stories about your growing up in those during Berkeley when your drum kit was basically pulled apart on you while you were playing. Some people may not have heard that. It is part of you spoke a little bit on your DVD.
Correct.
But can you just like a shorter version of what a humbling experience like, you know, getting basically told that you're not as good as what you think you are sort of does to you as a musician?
Right. Well, the condensed version is that, you know, I was heavily into rock and fusion. It was in the beginning of the 90s, and I was practicing all day, and I had a decent amount of chops together. And then I went to Berkeley in my first semester. I got asked to sub on a bebop, advanced 8-semester bebop jazz ensemble. And I had my huge fusion kit, and I came in, and we were playing standards. And I had like 7 cymbals and 2 splashes and 2 hi-hats, double bass drum pedal, power toms, and it was completely inappropriate for the situation, obviously. And we started playing, and I just started going crazy on the drums like I usually did back then. And then the instructor started pulling my drum set apart one thing at a time until he left me with just hi-hat, snare drum, bass drum, and ride cymbal. And then he asked me to solo with just those 4 things. And of course, you know, since everything I had played until that moment was completely based on the configuration of my drum kit, and it was all rock fusion elements and sound, then it was a complete disaster for the amount of time that ensemble lasted. So that was a very humbling experience because I realized I really had to put a lot of time into what jazz is and to the actual language of it, which is very specific.
Yeah, I think a lot of us have had similar experiences. I know I've had a similar experience, but I thought I was doing the right thing, or I thought I was better than I was, and had a bit of a bad leader that sort of kicked my butt a little bit there.
Those are great wake-up calls.
They are a wake-up call.
Yeah.
So it changed you because then you thought, well, then I've got to sort of now delve into all these different styles, and then, you know, obviously just put you back on earth, I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think humility is the best thing that you can keep as a musician, because that's what will keep you learning. If at any given point you think that you know enough or too much, then that keeps you from moving forward.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, that's the best attitude that a musician can have. I don't know anything.
Yeah.
So I want to know more.
Yeah.
And that's what keeps moving.
Yeah. Getting into like learning about styles, I find this really fascinating. I've had the experience of being called up to do essentially an Afro-Cuban gig or a salsa gig, and not really knowing what I was doing, and then playing what I thought I was doing right, and then, you know. So it's all the stuff you've been talking about. So you've studied each of these styles particularly hard. And so with the salsa stuff, or with let's be more general than that. I'm always interested in what drummers have practiced in the past and what they practice now. You know, in terms of your development, say with salsa, you literally, is it just records, or you just, you know, a bunch of different teachers, or whatever you can get, you know, essentially?
Yeah, well, I mean, nowadays with the amount of information that is out there, online, offline, it's it can be very easy to find it, but it can be very confusing because there's so much of it, and sometimes you don't even know where to start,
or if it's right or if it's wrong.
Yeah, that too. There's a lot of wrong information out there for sure. So I mean, I was lucky that I was in an environment, which was Berkeley, that they offered all these classes and all these courses, and I wanted to learn things the right way. So I took percussion classes with like great percussion players, Afro-Cuban and Brazilian, and also drum set teachers that taught me how to adapt some of these things into the drum set. But it was a lot of listening. a lot of listening, discography, and just going to concerts and seeing the music actually get played. I think a lot of students will come to clinics and then they don't go to the concerts, which it feels like they're more interested in learning, hearing you talk about what you do than actually seeing you doing it. Yeah. And I think the clinics have an extra appeal that you can exchange ideas, or you can ask questions. At the gig, you're just going to sit down and listen. So a lot of times, kids feel more attracted to that kind of environment than the actual concert, which is a mistake.
Yeah, fair enough. In terms of, like, say, salsa, you mentioned it before in the clinic about each of the parts being played. So, if someone is playing the clave, you don't need to play that, or you wouldn't want to play the conga part if someone else is doing that. I've had the situation where I've been growled out by the timbale player because I, student went to a bongo ballet verse or something like that. For a long time, I just stuck to the patterns as hard as I could. When does it become okay to sort of start changing it up a bit and start, you demonstrate an idea about what you might do, like a sort of a skeleton type. You mentioned skeleton thing. I think I felt at the time I wouldn't have been able to do that because we've been growled out. And again, not being coming from the background to.
But to me, it's just language. I mean, how comfortable do you have to be to talk to me the way you're talking to me?
Yes.
With the language itself. So it obviously takes a long time. I mean, for me to be able to do this in English, my first language is Spanish. So for me to be able to do this in English, it took me until now. So it's the same thing with music. You have to practice it and do it and live it so much that it becomes second nature. And until it becomes second nature, you're going to feel like you have handcuffs. And you have to be careful, because if you're not and you overstep your limits within the band, especially if it's the kind of music that has a lot of tradition and there's a lot of parts that everybody's supposed to be doing, then you want to be extra careful. So it takes a long time.
Yeah. Which sort of brings me to sound. You used sort of, from what I could tell, two sort of main kits that you sort of alternate through. Obviously, the Metheny setup's a little bit more elaborate, but I mean, do you find that you can sort of just bring the sound that you like to the gig, or do you find that you change your sound a little bit to suit certain gigs? Obviously, people would call you up and want you to play on a gig because you're orientated and you sound like that. Rather than the drummer's got, a drum kit. He's got a 22, 12, 14, and then he's got an 18, 10, or whatever, So, I mean, do you change your tuning or your cymbal sounds depending, or do you kind of like to sort of, this will kind of suit?
Well, for a long time, I used to like to switch up drum sets and cymbals a lot, depending on what kind of music I was playing. But after a while, it started happening. What you mentioned, that I felt like people were calling me because of me.
Yeah.
So then I felt like I needed to make it a little more of a commitment with my sound, and also because I started really feeling comfortable with a certain kind of sound and equipment and my set of cymbals. So it's been a long road to acquire that sound, and now that I got it, I feel like it's the best way for me to speak, through that sound.
Yep. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to even get this question across to you, but there's a way like you're able to kind of create like it sort of seems like a constant, unwavering 16th note subdivision thing. Usually in the straighter fields, obviously, but whether it's through, I've seen you base solos around it. I've tried to emulate it, and I think a lot of it has to do probably with some independent stuff that I need to work on. But I mean, can you give some advice in terms of like the sort of stuff that you practice? Basically, all the sounds on the drum kit between, say, clicks, bells, hats, even your cymbals are very sticky.
I think it's a hybrid between all the jazz playing that I've done and also all the Afro-Cuban and rock playing that I've done, because I love to play, backbeat kind of stuff. But I always love to throw all those other sounds around. So it's it's just the amount of gigs that I've been able to do with people that play all those kinds of music so great. You know, it's so many gigs. You know, and no matter how much you practice, it's never going to be the same as sitting behind the drums on a stage with a bunch of people looking at you that paid a bunch of money to see you. So I think when my level started really rising was when I started playing live a lot. And I don't mean live like in, you know, little cafes or restaurants. It's also when you feel the added pressure of people actually listening to you. It's very different. You know, because we all play a bunch of little gigs where nobody pays much attention. You know? And it's cool. You get to play what you like. But it's not the same thing as, you know, 100 or 200 or 2,000 people just looking at you. And also, when you're playing with musicians of such high caliber, you know they're listening and looking at everything you're doing.
And does that make you play 150%?
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, if you don't, people that can't deal with that kind of pressure, then they usually kind of disappear from the scene.
Yeah.
The people that can deal with that pressure are the guys that are doing the records and the tours and that have a name, basically.
And so, I mean, even taking a little step back, how do you even get the audition for a pattern thing? I mean, around here, it's like they're over before we even know they were around. Were you searching for something like that, or someone said, "Hey, man, pattern thing's looking for a drummer. You should check it out."
Most of that, those kinds of things, I think, is kind of word of mouth.
Okay.
But the way it happened with me is that he actually saw me playing.
Yeah.
You know, and we had a double bill concert. I was playing with Danilo Perez, the piano player, and they played first and we played last. And he stayed after his gig, and while he was eating, we were doing our gig, so he could hear in the background. And it's a funny story because the promoter of that gig was in Torino, in Italy. He told me the story that we were playing, and back then I had like a few cowbells and this flat timbale and a couple of bongos and a conga, and I was doing all this crazy independent stuff. And I remember the promoter asked Pat, "So do you like this band?" And he said, yeah. While he was eating, he said, "Yeah, I like it. Especially like how the drummer and the percussion player played together." But it was just a trio. It was just bass, piano, and drums. So then the promoter told him, "No, but it's just one guy." And I was like, "What?" And then he went on stage to see how I was doing it.
Yeah,
and then from then he kind of remembered me. And then we coincided on the same tour, also in London. He was playing somewhere else. And when he heard that we were there, he came after his gig to hear us play again. And then he sent me this email like, "Man, I love what you do, but do you play other kinds of music or just..." Because it was kind of heavily Latin oriented. And I said, "Man, I love to play anything." So then he said, "Well, how about Thursday? You want to jam?" I was like, "Thursday's good."
And that was the audition?
That was the beginning.
Okay.
And the first time we played together, we just played duet like for 4 hours. You know, we just like playing different groups and tunes. And then every time we would both coincide in town, then he would call me and we would jam some more. Mm-hmm. And it was a long process, maybe I would say like a year of kind of us jamming and he trying to make up his mind, because he was doing a bunch of other stuff too. But then when he finally said, "Okay, you're in the band," it took a while from the first time. It was an ongoing audition.
So I always ask this of drummers like yourself, but you know, what do you find challenging these days in terms of, you know, could be schedule? One person said to me that the challenge was, you know, just dealing with flights all the time. You know,
well,
but yeah, we should probably. But like, what do you find challenging for yourself?
I mean, to stay sane on the road, it's a challenge.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I have a friend, Scott Colley, that sometimes when stuff gets really weird on the road and you're missing flights or, you know, they don't come to pick you up and you're like stuck in the middle of nowhere, sometimes look at each other and we're like, wow, we live a strange life for sure. Because, you know, it's so ungrounded. So you need to find that ground yourself. Yeah, that balance. And I think it's as hard as finding balance on stage while you're playing jazz. Because to find balance playing jazz when you're on stage, you need to be comfortable feeling uncomfortable. You know, the way music goes. You never know exactly what's going to happen. So then you have to be able to relax and feel completely at ease, knowing that you have no idea what's going to happen. You know, but you trust your instinct, and you're like, well, you know, I've worked hard enough, so I'm sure whatever comes, I can handle it. You know, that's what the feeling should be. So I think I would like to apply the same thing to the road. But, you know, I've actually thought a lot about starting meditating. I have a few friends that are doing it, and that transcendental meditation, and they've told me that it has worked wonders on them. So maybe I'll start doing something like that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And just, you know, quickly, what excites you these days? Like, what besides? I mean, obviously you play with great musicians. I mean, is there a gig that you haven't done that you want to do? You know?
Yeah, I know this is going to be really hard, but I'd love to cross over at some point and do like an amazing rock tour.
Yeah.
Like, you know, with Peter Gabriel or something like that. You know, because I love that kind of music.
Grew up
the thing
with
is,
stuff.
yeah. But the thing is, I play so much of this other thing that it would be really hard for them to see me playing super hard acoustic. They'd be like, oh man, that would totally work in my band.
Right.
You know, so I doubt it's going to happen, but it's a dream of mine.
So you found yourself a little pinpointed as a jazz drummer.
Yeah. I'm fascinated with that. You know, huge crowds and big places and huge sound. Just like just laying
Different set of chops.
I love that kind of stuff, and I love going to rock concerts and just feel the energy of the band and the people. To me, because in jazz you don't get that. You know, you get a completely different set of things that happen, which are amazing. You know, when the audience and the band are in tune and things are happening, it's crazy as well. And the closest I've gotten to feeling that is with the Pat Metheny group. Sometimes we play really big places. And the cool thing is that you still get to play this really intense, intricate music, which you have a really big part of. You know, because a lot of times rock bands, you know, is the singer and then the band is way back there. Yeah. So that's the cool thing about this band, that I'm in the front and you know, people notice me as much as they notice Pat Metheny, which is great.
All right. Well, I could probably talk to you for the next 30 years. I'm not sure if you have 30 years left to talk to me, but...
of course I have 30 years left. Yeah. I'm only 40. What do you think?
I'd like to thank you very much on behalf of our audience and myself for spending some time with us, and good luck with the rest of your Australian visit, and we hope to see you again sometime.
Appreciate the interview.
Yeah.
All right, take care.
See you. Thank you. Antonio Sanchez.